Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Looking for Love in All the Wrong Dust Jackets, a show where three cool, crazy ladies come to you with the latest in romance, whether that's books, movies, TV shows, video games, who knows, whatever we want. My name is Liz.
I'm Danny.
And I'm Aaron. Wait, Wiggles. Keep it.
The belch in there and then your name as well.
Yep.
Today, we are talking...
I'm sorry. Go for it.
Today, we're talking to you about A Soul to Keep by Opal Reyne. But before we get into that, gotta do the usual. Listen, folks, we're some crass ladies. We're gonna swear. We're gonna talk about the sexy times. And this is a monster romance, so you know it's got some sexy times. So just be prepared.
It's true, I enunciate my slurs like a fucking lady.
There you have it.
Mm-hmm. It's a good skill to have.
Okay. What have you guys been up to, though? Talk to me about what you've been reading, listening to, watching. What are you doing?
I mostly have been watching Chicago Med while I was reading this book in your house, Liz.
I know. I saw the recommendation on my TV and I was like, who the fuck watches Chicago Med? And I was like, oh, Danny was here.
I was cat sitting for you and I sat on your couch and read this book and watched Chicago Med because I don't really need to pay attention to it, although there are some good romances in there.
Well, I read The Bone Clocks, which is, I can't even remember the author's name because I'm so annoyed. He wrote Cloud Atlas, which everybody was like, wow, this is so fucking good. And so I was like, oh, I'm gonna read this. And oh my god, what a fucking waste of time. I'm mad. I'm livid because here's the thing. It's supposed to be about this young girl's life, right? And you know what instead ends up fucking happening? We have to listen to 3 entire sections of this book that are from the different man's perspective, and they're all just bitching about their wives. Do you know how many monologues you can read about men bitching about their wives before you just, like, lose your fucking mind? I don't know either, but I'm close. So that's what I've been reading.
I finished Witches Get Stitches by Juliet Cross, which is the 3rd in the Stay a Spell series. If you've heard that one before, that's because Wiggles is ahead of me on book 6. Is that what you are?
Yes. I haven't started it yet because I finally got the audiobook because it just came out like about a week ago, and then I had to wait for my like credits to load up.
Yeah.
And so I'm excited for this weekend.
I need to start listening to those because 1, you guys are both obsessed and I need to, and 2, audiobook daddy.
Audiobook daddy.
Chef's kiss.
I will say the downside to listening to audiobooks, at least for me, is sometimes I will be like invested. I'm like finding all the spare time in the world to listen. And other times I'm like, I need a break from content. And so I'll just like go back to listening to music or, you know, whatever. And this was kind of that time. So it took me a long time to get through it, but I don't think that has anything to say about the book. I think that's just me.
Well, audiobook experiences and reading aren't necessarily the same experience. No. And, you know, that's part of why I like Audiobook Daddy so much is because a lot of times I'll listen to an audiobook and the inflection choices that the narrator makes can take a line that would probably seem like sarcastic and funny and turn it into something that seems whiny and annoying, right? And so he does a really good job of making me not hate the things that he's saying. But yeah. So I think that they're really fun, and if you don't want to read something that's too serious, this is great.
Yeah,
like really low stakes in terms of like world, but high stakes in terms of personal. Okay, so let's talk about this book. So we start with Rhea, who's been completely disowned by her entire village and treated like shit her entire life. Why? Because her entire family was murdered in front of her by demons. That's right. Fucking demons. And so they put her in a shed by herself and like feed her scraps and shit, and she fucking hates everything. And when she finally comes of age and it's time for a particular type of demon, a dust walker, to come and retrieve his prize, she's dressed up like a bride and sent along her way with him. Then he pretty much like tries to treat her nice, but is also a fucking demon who doesn't understand humanity very well. And she's also like, yo, your people fucking murdered my family and made my life fucking hell. But somehow they find a way to come together. But the problem is, this man's obsessed with taking her goddamn soul. And that's not super great because, you know, you need it. So she goes on to sort of fall in love with him, sort of just want to fuck him because she's into that bestiality kink. Woo! And they get along pretty well until a lady from his past comes along and fucks their shit up. And that is where I'll leave you because we're going to talk about the rest.
To quote Janet from The Good Place, not a demon.
Whatever, man.
He's not a demon. That's a whole
demon.
thing in the story. He is not a demon. He's a dustwalker, which is part spirit, part human, part unknown.
Part trash.
He's not trash. He's bootyful.
He's like if an owl ate a series of animals and coughed it back up and put it back together and made a thing.
I'm very attracted to him, so fuck off.
I'm just saying it's true.
Anyway, before we get into...
she did not come of age. She is 26.
Yeah, I don't know why you think's come of age. She's 26.
Whatever, man.
Did you read this book?
I did. I just was annoyed.
Oh my god. Whatever. Anyway, so this book is by Opal Reyne. This is the first in a series that currently has 4 books, but I think is slated to maybe have 9, if I'm remembering correctly. And she's from Australia. I may have mentioned that just a second ago, or may not have. And she originally wanted a book that kind of had some sort of character like the way Orpheus is described, some big, hulking, monstrous, barely humanoid kind of creature, and couldn't find anything, at least when she wrote it, that was similar to him. And so she wrote this series.
Woo!
There you go.
Perfect.
Great.
Mm-hmm.
Great author rundown. I'm proud of you.
Yeah, it's called Reading the Back of the Book. Anyway, what would you guys like to start with? Because I have so many thoughts. I love this series. I know Wiggles doesn't, and that's fine because she's wrong.
She is indeed wrong because I have not read this series, but I have read this book.
Everybody's entitled to like and dislike what they want.
Except for you.
Except for you. Go fuck yourself. No, just kidding.
I mean, that was pretty much the consensus when you guys didn't like a book I put out there. So it was, yeah, but fuck you, Wiggles.
Seems to be a running theme. No, I kind of knew you wouldn't like it. But I love it so much because I love world building, and I think this world that our author has created is very nuanced and interesting, especially if you read more of the books, because you learn more and more about the universe. You learn more about how demons got there. You learn more about the elves, more about the Dustwalkers and like their parents, or whatever you want to call Owl Witch or Witch Owl, and the void that is their father. So yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And how the world got to the way it was, because it was essentially a world almost exactly like ours until the portal was opened and the demons came, which aren't demons like demons from hell. They're very different.
Well, why don't we talk about the world then? Let's start there. When we're first introduced to it, and I'm sure this is intentional with the idea of like unveiling the mystery, right? We're not really given a ton of context as to why it is the way it is, right? We know that there are demons. We know that there are Dustwalkers, and we know that they all want to eat humans.
Mm-hmm.
And otherwise, we don't really know why it's so regressive of a society. It seems at first glance that this is like some medieval village. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but as you read on, you kind of get the impression that it wasn't. Like, they don't tell you a lot. I'm sure it goes into it much more further in the series. But there was a couple of moments where I kind of got the impression that maybe it was actually kind of a dystopian.
Well, at one point, Rhea actually has, I don't know if you guys caught this, because it's like almost a throwaway line where she's talking about gunpowder and electricity and saying, what would our world have been had we been able to actually continue to progress and innovate? But then the demons came and we no longer could mine because it's too dark, and the demons who are afraid of sunlight would hide out in there, and they couldn't, they were so focused on just surviving, they couldn't evolve.
Right.
Yeah.
It's almost like it's kind of like a metaphor for global warming in a lot of ways, because it's biting your own hand to save yourself, right? Like, it's things like she talks about there's no fucking trees in the village because they can hide in them and jump on them, right? And so, yeah, I think that if, as you describe, there's more information in future books, I think that that's fine. I think that in this one, it was really hard to figure out what time period it was. Like at one point, it's sort of like the way she talks, it felt like, okay, is this like 2000s culture? Like, and then there were other times where it was like, why are you using this tool that would not be effective when more effective ones would have been created by this time frame? And so I'm sure if they go into that more, it's more effective. But
she goes into it a little bit more, especially in the third book. And I don't want to like obviously explain or ruin anything if you go on to read those books. I guess I didn't really feel as taken out of it, because I remember when I first read this book, it was about the same time I was watching or just finished watching Attack on Titan, which is an anime. It kind of has a very similar vibe to it as far as there is the world and then some big monsters come and the world regresses and becomes solely focused on surviving against those monsters. Mm-hmm. So like I got it doesn't fit any time period because it like is completely out of time as far as our concept of that is concerned.
Right.
Yeah, and I kind of get that from like, and also maybe get the impression that like while things might have progressed since the demons came, everything stopped. So that might be also why they lost the ability to do certain things, because I think she says that the demons have been there for like 300 years at this point.
Yeah, that's about right. It's like 200 or 300, something like that.
So you would, over the time period of not doing it, people would lose the knowledge of doing certain things.
Well, and you can't travel, right? Because the demons hunt at night. So you can't travel between villages unless you're either very armed or like a demon slayer who has that ability.
Or one of the clerics that are like...
Oh, the priests, yeah.
Because they apparently their magic tastes terrible.
I'm still trying to figure out what those fucking priests are, man.
They creep me out.
There's like some vibes that I'm like, what are you?
Well, they do talk about how our male protagonist in the story takes advantage of that in order to get as many brides as possible. Is he will just like be like, here's your magic seal that says no demons, no. I'm gonna go give it to the next town in 10 years. Bye.
And then he also kind of explains too the negative of that is because once that seal is gone after 10 years, it's almost like the demons swarm that village.
Right.
Yeah.
Which like probably not. There's no guarantee, obviously, but there's a very good chance if they've been doing this in this village for a very long time, that's maybe why fucking Rhea's family's dead. But that doesn't matter because he fucks so good.
Well, she didn't live in the village.
Her family lived outside of the village in the forest, or right on the edge of the forest.
Sure.
Yeah, they weren't under the protection spell.
No.
They had their own protections that they had set up and everything, which apparently got broken, and that's why her family got attacked. And the only reason she didn't get attacked is because she doesn't feel fear the way most people do, or as strongly as most people do. Yeah. So they didn't notice her because she also wasn't stupid enough to make her presence known, which is saying something because she was 6.
Yeah, she was itty bitty.
Like, I would have been too stupid to not make my presence known.
Yeah, but when you grew up in that, right? When you grew up being told before you even understand to hide and be quiet no matter what. Mm-hmm. Like, I suppose, that's just what you do.
Well, it didn't sound to me like that was what she was taught, though. It read as if that was a reaction and it was something she was ashamed of. She wouldn't be ashamed of it if that was what she was taught to do. And, like, I think that she just panicked you know, and hid in a corner, and that's why she feels guilt over it. Like, if it was like
Right.
her dad said, go hide in the corner, and she did that, the same level of guilt would not be there.
Maybe not to the extent that she has it. But yeah, you're right. It kind of sounds like she just froze and wasn't found. But, you know, Orpheus even points it out. He's like, well, what would you have done? You'd have just gotten eaten.
Right.
Yeah, when she's freaking out about it and she's saying that it's all her fault, and he's like, what? Like, no offense, but like, what good would you have been? You were 6.
You'd just be dead now.
You'd just be dead.
Being very careful in this subject because, like, I love world building so much. It's one of my favorite things, and I just want to scream about all the stuff that you guys don't know yet. And so I'm going to keep my mouth shut.
Thank you, because I am going to read these.
Oh, I will say this about the world building is that I hope that she like corrects errors in future books, and that's what makes you so excited about the world building. But a lot of this world building had a massive amount of holes. Like there was a lot of, well, just cuz.
Which parts?
Well, it's like, okay, demons gain humanity, right, from eating more humans. And why? Just cuz they do.
Well, I think that part is, so demons, as they consume whatever they're consuming, gain the traits of it, right? So if they consume enough deers, they might have hooves or antlers. And so as they consume enough humans, I think it's less that they like gain humanity, but they gain the intelligence of a human brain.
Mm-hmm.
And so depending on your inclinations, that might provide you more humanity, like Orpheus. But there are plenty of demons that don't really have the compassion that he sometimes feels.
Well, and that's one of the things that I struggled with throughout the entirety of the book, where I was like, why should I feel any compassion towards this character? The only reason he's capable of it is through fucking murder. And like, if you strip away that, you know, oh, he's a monster and he doesn't know better and he's just an animal, right? Like, strip that away and you have literally an American psychopath, right? There's no difference. You have The Hills Have Eyes. And so it's hard to find that attractive in any way, because I'm just sitting there looking at it like, so he not only would he have eaten you gladly, he, as soon as like you fuck up, he's like, I'm gonna eat that bitch.
Well, except he didn't,
He
right?
didn't, because he got lucky at the beginning.
He did, yeah. With Rhea, he got very lucky a lot of times. But he actually felt regret for the other humans he had eaten, as far at least the other like companions, brides, whatever that he took. I mean, that was kind of the plot of that little arc of the Demon of Sorrows, or Arachnid of Sorrows, is when she shows up, or when Orpheus finds that demon who has the ability through some magic from some priest or priestess she ate to like play on people's emotions. She brought up the emotions of Orpheus, like killing his previous brides.
Right.
Well, and also it you do end up finding out that through most of the book, I assumed that he ended up accidentally, because he went into some sort of bloodlust, you know, that he accidentally ate most of them. And you kind of find out that that actually isn't what happened.
It happens to some. Some run away and get eaten by other demons that are in the Void Forest, and some get kidnapped and killed by the Demon King.
Which
Right.
actually you kind of find out was the vast majority of them.
Yeah.
Except that he had to have killed a certain amount of humans to get to the point where he could interact with Catherine. Is that what it is?
Yeah, Catherine. I think though, like, I guess the reason that I forgive all of that, or like don't get freaked out or whatever by it, is because he doesn't have the ability, at least for a good portion of that, to not. So until he eats enough people to have the intelligence to recognize what he's doing and the emotions that come along with that, he is just an animal, right? Nothing, you don't fault a bear for eating somebody or attacking somebody that steps into their territory.
But if a gorilla killed 1,000 people and then suddenly became sentient, your reaction to that wouldn't be, oh, I want to cuddle with it.
Oh, that might not be your reaction, but it would be some people's.
Yes.
To be honest, like, I'm not trying to like just like talk be devil's advocate to you, but that would be a lot of people's reaction to it, or some people's reaction to it, would be, well, you didn't know better up until now. Now you know better. Mm-hmm. And even with Orpheus, he isn't always in control of himself because of the bloodlust. So that's just my response.
I mean, fair enough. Like, here's the thing. I get the believe it or not, I do get the appeal. I get why people like it. The problem I have with Orpheus is honestly the problem I have with Rhea, where anytime he does something wrong, and same thing for her, they treat each other like they're pets. Like, hey, don't poop on the floor. That's not right. That's no good. Don't do that. But then, like, which, I'm sorry, anytime you treat anyone like a child, that's the least sexy thing to me in the world. But the reverse side of that is that he is always forgiven his outbursts and outrage, and literally, once again, if you make this a human man, no, like, that's not okay, right?
No, it wouldn't be. That's the point, though, of reading it from a monster's perspective with all of these additional, like, things of the bloodlust and growing up isolated even more than she was. So that's, yeah, if this was just a person in the woods, fuck no. But it's not just a person, a human in the woods.
Well, if you make a comparison to, let's make him instead a pretty boy, right? A good comparison would be Lestat. A lot of people find Lestat hot as hell, right?
I love Lestat. He's terrible, but I love him.
So here's the thing is, I would consider Lestat in the same category, right? But the difference is, Anne Rice went out of her way to make Lestat like the most attractive possible.
Yeah. And
in this book, she actually actively goes out of her way to try and make him like the antithesis of what like is typically the normal romantic lead, right? So like he's got sort of human appendages in certain places. He's got fur. He doesn't have a face. He doesn't have lips, which is like one of the most not androgynous.
What the hell?
Erogenous zones, right? And like I mean, there's a whole fucking description of him. His rib cage is outside of his body. His he's got fur in weird places, whatever. Like, I'm not gonna keep going. But then, just when you're like, okay, that's fine, whatever, I can accept this. He doesn't have a face. Okay. He has a fucking skull for a face. Okay. And then she's like, you want to hear about the dick, though?
Oh, the dick.
I'm very intrigued by the dick.
I was just waiting for Danny. I was like, this seems like a Danny response.
Although I will say, missed opportunity with the dick.
I think if your dick, it requires like a page and a half of description, maybe you went too far.
No, I was really excited about the dick. But I do think that there was a missed opportunity in all of the sex scenes because there are tentacles connected to the dick. And all they seem to do is hold her into place.
That's because they're not for her pleasure.
Well, they do play with her clit. But I think that there could have been some backdoor action that happened with the tentacles, just saying.
Read the third book.
Oh, okay. Never mind. I retract my statement.
But here's what I really want Danny's take on, because I literally wrote a note on my Kindle for Danny where I was like, oh no tail action though.
I am upset that there was no tail action.
You're gonna introduce a tail
because
and then you're not gonna use
tail,
it.
But there was no tail action.
Read the third book.
Oh. All right, well, Danny will be hidden away next weekend.
Just gonna put that out there.
Just put a pin in that.
I think though, getting back to the dick, I don't think I would be that bothered by it if the entire purpose of it wasn't like making over and over again. Like, she made this comment over and over again, both the Rhea and Catherine, that like he used his dick to change their bodies, and I was like, that's not how physics works!
No, he uses his magic.
it's whatever, man.
I knew that you would hate. Like I was reading that part
so much,
and I was like, Wiggles is gonna hate this
part. I hate it. It's so stupid. I'm sorry. Like,
It's
I
magic
get that this
Wiggles.
is a magical world and they have different rules and whatever, but like, I don't care if you are God's gift to women. You changing my body so I can take your dick, so I can take that dick. No, that's a murderable offense right there.
I guess the one reason that I not liked it, but at least I appreciated it, is there's so many monster romances where they got the big ass schlong, the big boy, and it just somehow works.
I don't like that either.
And at least this time she was like, listen, monster dick, you cannot have a monster dick that's like your forearm and have that fucking fit the human vagina.
That would be fine, but then they're like, no, I'm ruined for everyone forever. Like, your magic has to stretch out her hoo-ha perpetually for all time. Get real.
Again, I need to stop saying this, but you need to get through the third book.
I think
There are so many, all of your problems and all of your concerns
okay,
about tail action
why
are
do I
addressed.
gotta wait through 3 books before you answer your own questions?
Because, I guess I get what you're saying. I really do, but this book is already like 500 pages.
Oh, it could have easily been 200 pages less.
Oh, I don't think so. I loved every moment of it.
I feel like I'm taking crazy pills. It was so boring.
Really?
It was so boring.
I loved it.
Oh my god. We are fundamentally not on the same page on this one. I'm sorry, gals. Oh, I hated it so much.
Oh, I'm sorry. Anyway.
That's the good thing about this podcast, though. Like, we don't have to like.
No. Well, and that's the thing. I'm not shitting on you guys for liking it. I just don't understand.
I adored it. I loved it all. I wanted tail action. I wanted tentacle action. Apparently, I will get these things in book 3. So, yay.
I am with you on that. Like, if you're gonna have tentacles, put them to use.
And I mean, she did a little bit. They did some clit things. They held on, but I'm like, there's a brown thing that
Jesus Christ.
Okay, could have.
You need to wash your asshole.
Should not be brown. Well, depending on your skin tone, but for white ass bitches like us, it should.
Yes. But yeah, there's a back door that could have used some attention. That I feel like it was a missed opportunity. But
I agree. And I expected with it being so long, we would get there.
I will say I love a good like washing scene.
I did like that,
and you get a lot of those in this book.
I thought I figured Danny would like the bath time. I thought, Wiggles, you would hate bath time.
No, I loved the bath time, which is why I was like, oh, you know what? Maybe Liz is right. And then betrayal. Because they're like, let's spend an hour describing the world's worst dick. Let me just put my fucking tentacles into your legs and scar your bitch ass. Like, okay. Because the bath time, I was like, oh, it's a slow build. It's like there's a lot of tension because they don't know if the other one is like enjoying it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And she's not supposed to like it. Like, that was good. It should have kept that energy. That's all I'm saying. Instead, I can take this dick.
I like the dick. You're wrong, Wiggs.
Okay. The man has a slit that it hides up in and then comes back out when he's ready. And it can't be outside a slit for very long.
Yeah, there are plenty of animals in nature that have that.
It chafes.
That doesn't mean I want it.
Oh, gosh. Oh, no.
I'm not trying to ruin this for you. I'm sorry.
You can't.
I'm gonna shut up.
You can't.
You tell me what you liked. Tell me the good stuff.
I've already talked enough. Danny, you talk.
I love a good eating out scene, and this was a good eating out scene. His tongue intrigues me immensely because it sounds like he's got a very long.
Yeah.
Well, apparently it can reach her cervix.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the only thing that like sometimes brought me a little bit out when when she mentioned it, like, hitting your cervix, and I'm like, that doesn't feel good.
I have noticed in a number of romances and spicy scenes, they talk about bottoming out or hitting the cervix, and I'm just like, that's not comfortable.
No, that hurts like a bitch. Like,
yeah.
Is it I mean, not having a dick of my own, it doesn't sound like it would be super comfortable to hit the head of your dick against something hard like that.
Immovable?
Yes.
Yeah,
it's not hard exactly, but you know what I mean. Like,
well, it ain't going anywhere.
Right.
it's going anywhere.
It is a stop point. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, that I have a gripe about a lot of romance novels when they mention hitting the cervix. I'm like, but see, that's not enjoyable. That's not like hitting a fucking G-spot. Like, that fucking hurts. Don't hit my cervix. There's a reason we don't want to get a pap smear. Guess what? It sucks.
Well, there's a line in one of my favorite shows, and I've talked about it before, and that's Ted Lasso. And there's a character on there that's got the girls going crazy. So whenever you get around to it. Well, let me be completely clear. This is another one of those shows where, like, there ain't nobody who ain't at least a little hot. But that's neither here nor there. That's not the point. But there's this character who's flirting with this other girl, and apparently the tabloids have reported that he has girls he slept with report that he has a curve in his dick. And she's like, "Is that true?" And he's like, "No, I just moved my hips so it feels like I got a curve in my dick." And I'm like, that's the energy I want you bring into these romance novels.
Oh, Roy Kent. Pappy has a full-on, like, love of Roy Kent.
Who doesn't? Once you meet him, you're like, yeah, man. Although, if I'm being completely honest, my two big crushes from that show are Sam and Danny Rojas. You maybe don't know them yet.
No, I don't. There.
Okay.
I've not seen anything of Ted Lasso, so I got no clue.
Lots of cute boys. Lots of cute boys. And girls, but lots of cute boys. Anywho. So, give me less 12-inch dick, and give me one that knows how to move his hips, so it feels like there's a curve in the penis.
That's just, like, my only gripe when it comes to those things, is I'm like, don't touch my cervix with anything. Like, ow.
So, we've talked about Orpheus's dick, and we've talked about Orpheus's animalistic, duskwalker nature, but what did you think, like, of just him and his personality? Because, and this is talking about Rhea a little bit, but I really love the fact that, like, Orpheus and Rhea are kind of just mirrors of each other in a lot of ways. They're both impulsive. They both have terrible backstories and are just trying to find some level of either freedom or comfort in another person, just trying to escape what they've known for forever.
I do like that. I also like that neither of them really has the self-awareness to understand when things are going, he always assumes she's upset with him.
Yeah.
And she is not. And she doesn't always understand it. Granted, he does not explain, but she doesn't always understand why he wants her to do the things he wants her to do.
Well, and you understand the reason Orpheus reacts that way to her is because of that fucking Catherine bitch. Because that's what she was. She always hated him. Mm-hmm. And so he's just kind of like trying to not relive that, which is a very real thing with people who have relationship trauma. They just bring that baggage into the next one.
Well, I don't want to diverge from the conversation of their personalities quite yet, but I will say the way that Catherine is treated in this book feels very victim blamey, right? Like, she didn't want to be with him from the very fucking beginning and is acting out of self-preservation, and she's made out to be the worst person in this book. I'm sorry, it doesn't track. Like, it just, once again, make them human.
Well, I agree with you to a point. However, she then has been torturing him for 300 years.
If somebody attacked me, I would make him pay if I could.
I think the thing that Rhea does point out is that Catherine never tried to understand him. And obviously, like, what Orpheus did to Catherine, very bad. What Catherine did back to him, not so great.
But is it measurably, comparably fair? Because here's the thing. Whether or not we fully, like, recognize it as women, even we have this internal bias to be like, yeah, but we didn't consider his point of view. And the thing is, at the end of the day, he kidnapped her and like encouraged her to have sex with him when she didn't want to, and she just wanted to stay alive, and she took the first opportunity to escape. And this guy's been murdering bitches left, right, and center to make up for the fact that she is gone, right? She decided, nah, I'm gonna come back and I'm gonna fucking kill you. And like, is it okay? No. But is it comparably bad? No.
No, I mean, I do think Rhea does point out something that is important when she just asks Catherine, like, did you ever, like, speak up? Did you ever say no? And while I get what you're about to say, which is it's not her responsibility, and I get that, but I think, like, I don't know, I just think Catherine's a bitch. I do understand why she is the way she is to a point, but I'm not going to like her.
But the reason you don't like her is because this author chose to make her unlikable.
Well, yeah, that's the point of her, is she's supposed to be the antagonist,
right? And I don't, that doesn't sit right, you know what I mean? Like, no. and in terms of like, did she ever vocalize no, she didn't want to? No, but this is also Orpheus 200 years prior.
Yes, and
he has proven that it doesn't take much to make him snap and go like ape shit. And so do you think that he would have reacted particularly well if she pushed him away? Said, no, don't touch me? I don't know.
I guess I think he would, but then again, you know, we don't know what he was like 200 years ago. The only glimpse we get is the unnamed Duskwalker, who is supposed to kind of give you a glimpse of what Orpheus was like at that point.
Sure, but he doesn't really take no for an answer, except that he knows that Orpheus would fucking kill him. And Orpheus has told him, do not touch humans when they say no because they don't like it. He had to learn that lesson the hard way.
Yeah, Orpheus had to learn it the hard way, but the Duskwalker, he did learn it by Orpheus telling him, like, when people say no, it means no.
Right. Yeah, sorry, I'm not trying to be a downer. I just, like, whenever you look at a book, there's a certain lens that you have to consider, which is that the author is telling you something, even if they're not saying it overtly. And this author places the victims in the position of being the villains, and places the villain in the position of being the hero. And I think that's a very difficult line to walk and not be very intentional about what you're doing, because this sends a message even if she didn't intend for it to. Sorry to be a bummer. I'm just like, you have to be considerate of what you put out into the world. And we vilified a girl who was kidnapped and assaulted for 5 years by a murderer, right? It just didn't sit right with me. Like, everything that happened after I met Catherine, I was like, I don't even want to read the rest of this book.
Very different reaction.
Yeah.
I think that one of the things about books like this one, and anything that you might consider like a darker romance, which again, honestly, as far as the romance is concerned, I think this one so far is the darkest. The second one has a lot of other things going on that would be considered traumatic and heavy, but it doesn't have the kidnapping or Beauty and the Beast thing in it. Is the exploration from like both the reader and an author's perspective of like things that you would never accept or never be acceptable in real life. So like pushing those boundaries, maybe to a point for some people that is too much, is part of the book, is to explore that and what you may or may not enjoy in that.
I agree
with that, because there are many things that I have read and thoroughly enjoyed that I would never want to happen in real life or to happen to anybody in real life.
Right.
I swear I'm on a watch list somewhere. Like, that somebody's gonna look at my like past reading and be like, the fuck, girl.
From the standpoint of like, I think everybody should be able to read whatever they want. Like, if you want to read Haunting Adeline or whatever the fuck it is, read away, man. But thinking about the dark romance that we read last, right? The Peter Pan one, Hooked. Thank you. I don't think that it was as easy to misconstrue as being a happy ending. I mean, like, they did portray it that way, but, like, it was also, like, this is fucked up. You just murdered your dad. Like, this isn't something we should aspire to, right? And this is kind of ends in they went off into the sunset and lived in their cabin. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
So.
Well,
and they're going to put the 10-year thing around their cabin so that they can travel together.
Which is very sweet and adorable. Doesn't protect villages. Rhea, okay, so we've talked about Orpheus being morally gray. Rhea, I think, is even more morally gray than him because she should know better.
Agreed. She is so quick to be like, yeah, murder them bitches. I don't give a fuck.
Yeah, she is. I really didn't think that she would go for that when he was like, I'll kill them all. And she was just like, yeah, let's do this. And I'm like, whoa, whoa, whoa.
And then at the end of the book, she brings it back up. Like, he is done and past it or whatever. And she's like, so you said that you would murder them? And he's like, well, yeah, if you want. And she's like, yes, please.
She's like, can I watch?
I know. I'm like, Rhea.
Well, I even like at one point when Catherine's like trying to talk to her about it, like, and is trying to get her to like open up about what she thinks is her trauma, right?
Yeah.
She's like, you know, they eat humans, and she's like, yeah, but not me. And I'm like, bitch.
I know.
You are a horrible person.
Well, to play devil's advocate, because yes, she is kind of a horrible person in that aspect. She had a lot of trauma involving that village. Like, they literally threw shit at her and wouldn't let her speak and stuff for 20 years. So, yeah. I understand. I'm not saying it's right, but I understand the impulse. Well, she's like, he ate my trauma. Guess what? Yeah. Them bitches be my trauma.
I also think, too, oh, shit.
Oh, no. Liz mentally blue
Did it
screams.
Get lost in the abyss of Tentacle Tick?
Tentacle
Tick. I mean, it can't be choke sex this time.
Damn, I wish there was a little choke. There was just a smidgen?
Okay, here's the thing. We'll come back to you, Liz. We need to address this.
Yes.
So, I think that was also that aspect of the tail disappointment, but also the choke sex disappointment. He chokes her at the very beginning, and she kind of likes it, even though she fucking hates him. Well, he doesn't choke her; he holds her by her throat.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And I was like, okay, so this is gonna come back, right? No, it did not.
Technically, he did choke her once, but it was with his tongue going down her throat.
Yeah.
Correct. And there was one moment where they like briefly mentioned his hand around her throat, and he was just kind of like holding on to her, like, and I'm like, okay,
just go the extra step, though.
I was like, okay, just a little. It doesn't have to be hard, just a little squeeze, because you know I love me some choke sex.
I think Orpheus was way too scared of actually hurting her to ever do that.
I mean, agreed.
I don't think his character could have done that intentionally anyway.
Well, Orpheus, like, I know we're going back to talking about Orpheus again, but like,
he is the main character.
He's like a little bit bipolar in his like reactions to things, where he's like, I must be super gentle, and then he's like, you almost hurt yourself, rage, and you're like, okay, okay.
I did laugh that she lost her virginity to his tongue.
Right.
Which, okay, so here's the thing. Until she like put it that way, I was picturing his tongue differently. In my mind, it was like thinner, more like a snake, and that's why it had the length to wrap around. And then I was like, wait, so is it more like a stump? And it's like, whoo!
I think it is more like a cow's tongue, maybe, just like really
but just
broad
like really,
and
like
flat.
Venom, maybe the character from Spider-Man.
Maybe,
yeah, that makes sense.
It's just he's got a long snout and a big head, so he's got a lot of tongue in there.
Oh, okay. So I got to bitch about him one more time, but this is probably the last time.
Oh, right. Sure.
Well, okay, the last time about his physicality. Why did she think it was going to be sexy for us to get the visual of him taking his tongue out and looking up his nose? Because he was, there's a part where he's like, can smell her arousal, right? And she sees him take his tongue while his eyes are purple and lick up his snout, almost like the way she describes it, I remember it vividly, is almost like he was trying to taste it the way it smells. And I was like, that man's going for boogers, and I'm supposed to be turned on by that.
He doesn't have that.
I didn't.
Yeah, but it don't matter.
No,
it don't matter.
I didn't picture it that he was sticking his tongue up his nose. I pictured it like he lulled it up.
No,
and, like,
she
down.
describes it like going like slip up the nostril hole, and I'm like, ew.
I guess I was more with Danny. I didn't really picture that, especially because like he doesn't have the cartilage and such of a nose, so it's just a hole there.
Either way, not attractive. like I'm just gonna stick my tongue up in my face.
I guess I
pictured it more that he like ran it across the top of the skull portion,
right,
not going into his nostril,
or like over the top of the nose hole, not necessarily like up into his brain.
I don't know. I like that. That was a moment that was one of the moments where I almost was like, Liz, what the fuck? This ain't, like, if we're gonna do monsters, that's fine. But at least they could not be gross.
I guess, okay, aside from that, I found him the same way Rhea found him attractive, in this kind of just, like, ethereal, like, very much not human, but humanoid-ish, like, interesting way. Not like the attractive of like, oh, look at that hot stuff over there, but just like, what are you? What do you do? What that thing do?
What that thing do?
And then you find out.
And I was like, that's what that thing do?
Liz, you made me so happy right there.
Yeah, I
My
quoted
D&D
you.
character says that all the time. Hey,
You say that all the time. It's
what
not
that
just your
thing do?
D&D character. Danny says that.
That's true.
I did like, here's a positive. I did like the first eating out scene. I thought that was like,
when she was sleeping?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I didn't love that. But I did love the like the lead up to it, right? She's having that dream where it's like it feels like he's everywhere, and then he kind of becomes everywhere,
right,
a little bit. And you know, creepy
say,
vibes aside, I did really enjoy that scene.
I will say, in defense, she was not asleep when he started eating her out.
Correct.
He
But,
had permission.
Yeah.
Like Ice Planet Barbarian.
unlike Ice Planet Barbarian.
So, I mean, when I said earlier that I found it boring, or that they could cut like a couple hundred pages, really for me, a lot of it came down to the domestic, everyday stuff. It couldn't hold my interest because I wasn't interested in the couple, and so like those little moments that are supposed to be cute or whatever, I was like, can we go? Can we get to whatever like obstacle is gonna happen?
See, and for me, that was probably my favorite part. Like, once Jebbies,
I
like Jeebus. I don't think that's how you pronounce it, but that's how you pronounce it.
But it is how I am going to now.
He is the Jeebus.
Anyway, whenever he shows up, our Demon King, the hottie, quote unquote, I was like, let's get past this. Go back to just like being in their house and figuring out how to like, I don't know, make your magical protection trinkets and shit. Like, I loved the domestic stuff.
Oh, I wanted to get past Jeebus too. I just because he was really annoying.
It was really annoying, and I love that how she defeated him was to punch him in the nads.
I mean,
yeah.
You go, girl. Well, not even the nads. He said specifically, she punched me in my slit.
Seam. He says seam.
Whatever.
It's
the
called.
point.
I love that. That's how she. I mean, she took a low blow and she did what she had to do to be able to warn him that he was in danger.
See, I wish she would have taken it. Like, you've already you've done the gross out factor up to this point. Take it one step further. Punch up through the seam. And get him in the balls that are up in the seam. Take it there, right? We've already come this far.
Wouldn't she
Let's
have to
some
punch
fun with it.
down?
Well, yeah, I think at that point she couldn't uppercut. She'd have to take a knee to uppercut. She'd have to team Tebow and then uppercut.
Fine, do it. That's what I want to see, okay? At that point, I was like, you already done so... She put in so much effort in some of the writing to, like, make Orpheus seem gross that I was like, okay, let's go. Let's do more gross shit.
I think the interesting thing is, you are saying she made Orpheus seem gross, and I'm like, she made Orpheus seem interesting. Like,
Same. Yeah.
I didn't interpret any of that to be gross or the domestic shit to be boring. Maybe that just isn't your fucking style, man.
I don't think it is.
Well, and it also kind of speaks to our different likes a little bit there, Wigs, because you tend to be, I think, a little bit more of a contemporary romance. Those are kind of the ones you've been choosing and everything.
I think what it goes to, really, where you're talking about the differences between us, Danny, I think it comes down to what is a fantasy for us, and our fantasies are different.
Yes. I lean much more heavily into the dark romance than both of you, really, but...
Oh, for sure.
But especially more so than Wiggles. Liz is like, I'll lean into that with you a little bit, but... Or more so, and then Wiggs is like,
I will try.
Yes.
If you give me a dark romance that doesn't make me feel gross, I will celebrate it till the cows come home. I promise you.
Well, I'm sorry. I'm yet to find one that doesn't make me feel a little gross.
Well, I think that's a little bit part of it.
That's kind of part of dark romances. It kind of always takes you to a place that you absolutely would not like. Is this a fantasy for myself in real life? Fuck no. Honestly, quite frankly, a romantic relationship at all is not somewhere that I want to be in my real life. But dark romance definitely wouldn't be the top of my game for my personal life. No, but it is definitely the top of my game for my reading materials.
I think, too, it also comes down to what you like in a book in general.
Mm-hmm.
I saw this TikTok once, and I really wish I knew who the TikToker was, but it was so long ago. But he explained that books have different, like, buckets. So you have world building, character development and relationships, plot, and then, like, writing style itself. I think it was only those four. And depending on what genre you're reading, it will give preference to different things. If you're reading like the classic epic fantasy tale, it's world building and plot. Those are going to be the two biggest things. Whereas when you're reading a romance, your biggest thing is going to be characters. So depending on what you find valuable or interesting in like your own stuff, it's going to change the book you like. I love world building regardless of where it comes from.
One thing I would love to get your guys' perspective on is, in your mind, is this a happy ending? Do we feel good for Rhea? Do we feel good for Orpheus? Or is it a happy ending because it ends with them together and that's the only thing that makes it happy?
I do think it's a happy ending because she does, like, as opposed to the, like, we're going to stay together in this, tiny home because that's what he wants to do and everything. They are branching out together, allowing them to go and do things that both of them would like to do that he also couldn't do because he got her soul. Mm-hmm. He no longer hungers. He doesn't have that ravenous hunger where he's going to attack anybody just because they got a fucking paper cut. And so they are allowed then to go and explore the world together and different realms if they want to, because now they do know that there is a different realm and everything that they could do. I don't know that they're planning on going anywhere near that or anything, but that is a possibility. And because he now has his companion, he doesn't need to set up the protections on the villages anymore to obtain a companion. So they can set it up on their house, and their house will be protected. So it's not going to be completely destroyed, and like her food options and stuff aren't going to be completely destroyed because they're gone for a certain amount of time. So I kind of like that they get to branch out and learn new things and travel together and everything, which is something that they wanted to do.
Yeah, so I'm a little biased, or not. Well, I'm more than a little biased, but I also know the next several books, and they do show up periodically in them. But just looking at this book, I would say yes, for what Danny said, right? So, and we didn't touch on this yet, but Rhea giving Orpheus her soul, which she does when she's dying because of the Demon King, completely removes all of his, like, problems. Like, he can be around people now. He's not going to hunger. She also has all of the freedom in the world because even though she can get hurt, if she dies, she just comes back because she's a phantom. So she gets what she always wanted, which was the freedom that she never had. And he gets what he always wanted, which is to basically have like control over himself and companionship. So even though like the fact that they are together is a series of fortunate or unfortunate events, that's kind of just life. And I think they do live happily ever after.
I will say that I don't love that they apparently can't be away from each other for more than a day.
Yeah, that's a little bit of a bummer.
That I don't love because, like, I love many people in my life, but you bitches need to leave me alone for more than a day. Like, it'd get old real quick, I feel like.
Well, I think, the way she's put this in the book, that's a good thing too, right? Because they've been alone for so long. But yeah, like you say, not for me.
So, Wiggles, what about you? I'm assuming you have a different perspective on their happily ever after?
No, I just, I think it's open to interpretation. I think as far as these two characters are capable of being happy, this is what happiness looks like for them. I don't think Rhea would have made that choice, at least for a while, if it wasn't life or death.
Oh, to give her soul to Orpheus?
Yeah.
No, I don't think she would have done it.
No,
maybe
I don't think
even
so
ever.
Right?
Unless she knew she had to for her own protection. And I don't think that's because she didn't love Orpheus and want to give or be with him. I think it's just like that was
soul.
Well, and she didn't want to live forever. That's one of the things she says in there. She's like, I don't want to live forever.
Right.
I'm like, same bitch. Living 30 years was hard.
Because the only way, as far as we understand, Duskwalkers die is if their skull gets destroyed. So Orpheus we don't know how old, but he's at least 300 years old.
I think maybe the other reason I was sort of like, okay, can we keep it going? I was more interested in the owl witch lady than I was like anything they were doing. I was like, who is this woman? Give me more of her.
I do think that has been one of the books that the author Opal Reyne has added to her maybe right is a prequel of the witch owl and the void father guy. Yeah, which I'm excited for
that to me is more interesting than their domestic bliss. But
than their domestic bliss. Sorry. I don't know why that struck me as so funny, but it did.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, we haven't talked about the witch owl at all, who is Orpheus's mother.
Mommy
dearest.
He does not know it. I love how sarcastic she is, though, because she lured Rhea away from him in the middle of the demon city.
Yes.
And got her to go into a bookstore and then found a book of fairy tales and put a feather in under Beauty and the Beast.
Yep. Yeah. The witch owl is very interesting to me in a lot of ways because, like, she is neither the good or the bad guy. She is like, the reason Orpheus is the way he is because she basically abandoned him.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
But she also helped save him in a lot of ways by giving him information, but she did it in a cryptic way instead of just being like, here, let me explain how you can improve your life.
Yeah, instead of sitting down like a goddamn adult and having a conversation with
She gives off Greek god energy,
yes.
which is like,
very much
I'll help you when it's entertaining for me.
Yeah.
And I'll also fuck you over when it's entertaining for me. Just,
I also will say you do find out that most of the people that he had, I will say people because they do not specify that it is always a woman. There are men that have come and been his companion as well.
He's brought men as well.
So most of the people that he has brought that were taken by the Demon King, she took them back out of the castle.
I don't remember that part.
The Owl Witch saved them.
Did she?
Mm-hmm.
She talks. The witch owl, she talks a lot in cryptic language. I'm just like, bitch, what you saying?
The Demon King says it, though, too.
Mm-hmm.
I do know that she comes to rescue her third son. It's briefly mentioned, the ram-horned Duskwalker.
Yes,
the Demon King.
Him as well.
Does it ever explain if there are Lady Dustwalkers?
They have not shown up yet, but at the very end, the witch owl does say that whichever gender they consume first dictates their gender, but so far it's only been
so it's like
males.
Munchkin.
Yeah, it's like Munchkin, yeah.
I will say a little bit that makes sense. Not to be sexist, but if they are living in a little bit of a regressed society, it would be highly more likely that males would be out of the villages, out of protection,
right,
than females would. God, I hate saying females.
I know.
Yeah,
but
the F-bomb was dropped in this a couple of times, and I was like, gross.
But I will say that, like, again, not to be sexist, but in a more regressed society, it would be more logical that men would be out of the village more frequently than women would be. So maybe the likelihood that they would be attacked would be higher.
No, I think that's fair.
Mm-hmm.
Logically.
I mean, women can do anything men can do, but just saying, back in a regressed society and everything.
Women can do anything men can do, but if you have somebody actively pushing you into the ground, it's a lot harder.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Also, not gonna lie, like, I can cut firewood, but is my friend's boyfriend significantly better at it than I am? Yeah, sure is.
Well, yeah, but he owns and lives on a farm. So
Yeah.
you're comparing city kid to farm kid.
It's true.
So, okay, I will say this as someone who has been singing the praises of this book. I had a number of gripes with the actual writing style.
Woo-wee, so did I.
I do think that the author gets better in her next few books. I didn't mind the kind of like info dump you got at the beginning because I thought it was necessary, but sometimes where I think it could have been trimmed is some details. It was just like the sentences drag on a little too much.
And she repeated some of the same details.
Yeah.
Like, in one point, it would be like, do I want to stay with him? I think I maybe want to. And then 2 chapters later, it'd be like, do I want to stay with him? I think maybe I do. And it was very, like, cyclical for the longest time. And I was like, and that's probably why I didn't really like the domestic part a little bit, because I was like, God damn it. Well, I've already read this.
Yeah. I mean, I guess I liked the fact that Rhea constantly was going back and forth with her emotions and having conflicting emotions, because that felt like what a real person would be like.
Mm.
But yeah, just that's kind of really my only gripe, is just the writing needed cleaning up.
Mm-hmm. I think you could probably take like at least 20 pages off, just getting rid of the repeated thoughts. And not just like Rhea's thoughts. I mean, like the author's thoughts.
Yeah.
Where it's like, yeah, we know that. You told us that like 10 times now.
Yeah, I can see that. And I do get that. I didn't notice it as much. And maybe you noticed it more, Liz, because you've read it before. And maybe Wiggles noticed it more because she wasn't enjoying the book as much. Whereas I was like, tell me about all of the smut. But I can see where, the writing style could be cleaned up a little bit, and it could just be a learning curve as far as she was concerned. As far as, is this one of her first books?
No. I know she's a couple more than this, or a couple before this.
For me, I always notice when a writer is, I don't want to say weak, because that's not right. When they are ill edited, I'm going to put it that way. And it takes me out of it. It makes it really hard to enjoy the book. And so things like her not making it, I don't think there were times where she knew which perspective she was talking about. Like, there was a line early on in the beginning where Orpheus says, like, made mention to what his own head looked like. There's no goddamn mirrors. How do you know, bro? Like, where's this coming from? And it's like clearly a line that was meant to be Rhea's, and then she just, because she doesn't have clean perspective cut off, she just flip-flopped back around. And it's things like that really take me out of it, because then I got to stop and figure out what's going on. And I think part of the reason I have such a big issue with this, and this is something I've talked about before, it's like, if you have sloppy writing style, it makes it really hard for people who already have to work harder to read.
Right.
Like, we have grammar rules for a reason, and it's for the mass communication of it. And when you don't follow that because you think you don't need to, or you're too good for it, or your story surpasses the need for rigid structure, that's fine, but that does also, in my mind, make your book not as good.
My gripes are far smaller than that, because I just have some pet peeves. that are like, I can't stand it when a sentence is too run on.
Yep.
When you explain something and then you say, because blah, 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 blah. And it's like, you didn't need to say that because that was inferred or even told in the previous sentence.
Mm-hmm.
Agreed. Yeah.
Or, and this is the smallest pet peeve, I hate it when words are repeated.
Yep.
So if you say something like, oh, his arms are so strong and I'm so excited for his arms to be wrapped around me. I'm like, no, you used arms in 2 sentences back to back. You got to change it up.
Or overused throughout the book. That also gets my goat. Because I'm just like, listen, if you're just going to describe this thing the same fucking way, then just say that, like, if you're going to describe the candle as green, and then the next time you say the green candle, and then you say the emerald candle, fucking just say that the candle that's been sitting on the table is still fucking there. Right? Like, it's just, you're wasting everybody's time and energy with that kind of shit. And that's what I mean when I say like a slow book. It's like, I'm wading through your nonsense to get to your story.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
But for me, it's a smaller gripe. But
well, I think that's why I can read something like Jane Austen, which some other people would say is slow, right? Like a lot of those the classics, right, are considered to be so slow reads, and they're not action packed and whatever. I can read that all day long because it's well written and the word choices are really considered, right? And that to me doesn't necessarily make a good book, because if you don't have a good story, you don't have a good book, right? That doesn't eliminate that, but it makes the reading process enjoyable. I don't want to read a bunch of 5-letter words throughout your entire book. I want to read something that engages my mind and makes me think about the world. And if your world building is stunted by poor word choice or poor sentence structure, it's hard for me to enjoy it. And that's my rant.
Welcome to Wiggles TED Talk.
Yeah. Welcome to Wiggles TED Talk. Get an editor.
I am one of those people that has a hard time with some of the classics, though. And it very could just be because of ADHD. But, like, for instance, like Lord of the Rings. I love Lord of the Rings. It's so fucking hard for me to read.
Well, a lot of, like, amazing stories are written by not good authors. And we praise the author, and it's like, okay, so have either of you ever read Frankenstein by Mary Shelley?
Yes.
No.
Fantastic story. Not a very good book.
No, it's not. It's actually kind of a terrible book, but it's a really good story.
Yes. And it's like, it makes sense. It's her first fucking attempt at writing. And she wrote it in 2 days at a fucking party where they were like, make up the best scary story you can. And she's like, bet. I'm gonna write a book that they're gonna be talking about for centuries, bitch.
We've said a lot about editors and getting editors. I will point out, for a lot of indie publishers or indie books, getting an editor might not be something they can afford.
Correct.
So
yes.
just to like, look, when we're talking about big books that have like really been published by publishing houses and all that, yeah, get a fucking editor, get your editing done. But indie books, I just want to mention that, like, for some of them, and maybe a lot of them, they cannot afford an editor.
And I get that. I
Absolutely.
do. Completely, honestly. It's bullshit that we're not giving more support to indie authors. And I've said that before. My frustration is I'm expected to be forgiving of that as a reader, but if you're not then going, okay, I've made some money from this book, so the next one I'm going to improve. Like, at the end of the day, you're still asking for my money. You know what I mean? Like, you're still asking for me to invest in your book series. And I don't think it's really fair for the excuse of I'm an indie author, therefore I can't afford an editor, but you're not allowed to judge me based on that.
Oh, like, no, I mean, I get what you're saying for sure, because, like, I've read plenty of books that maybe if one decent person who, you know, maybe he was a lower end editor would have came in, it would have improved it significantly. And definitely for the people who obviously had made a lot of money on it, and it's like, you're just churning out shit still, like, maybe you should get an editor. And they probably do. Like, they just need more than one or a better one. I don't know. But
I will be your I will do a one pass through for $200. Send them to me. I will read you to filth. That's 555. Eat my ass.
Or just find us out on TikTok and DM us. And tell Wiggles your fucking Venmo or $200 to read
I'll
your book.
fucking do it though.
I know you would.
I fucking would. Honestly, like, all jokes aside, if somebody was like, okay, so I'm concerned about things, be like, send it to me. I will redline the fuck out of that thing.
You would too. Oh my god.
If you want to know Wiggles' credentials, her mother is a high school English teacher. Credentials.
And this bitch had to write a fucking thesis. And
not your mother, you.
Me. And I had to read the ungodly papers that come from post-COVID. So don't even start with me.
See, and this is why I would be afraid to write a book. Because one, I know you bitches would be like, Danny, give me the book. Give me the book. I'm going to edit it. And I'm going to be like, I don't know that I want to know your opinion of these things.
I am actively always in the middle of writing. I just need to find more time for it.
Same.
I hadn't realized that I got into 20,000 words on one book before I put it down. But and that was a sad and exciting day for me to know that I could write that much. And then also that it's now trash. Anyway, but I'm expecting, if I ever actually write a book, after I do all of my re-editing, rereading, more and more editing, y'all bitches are fucking, you were in line.
I don't, one of my biggest gripes that I've ever had as a student is the simultaneous tiptoeing line of having an educator either over nitpick a first draft.
Mm-hmm.
I understand that I needed to capitalize that T, but chill the fuck out, right? Mark it, but don't be a dick about it, right? Or giving me no fucking feedback. I hate nicety for the sake of being nice, because it doesn't help me improve. And I hold other people to a significantly reduced standard of that same idea. If you want my opinion and you don't want my real opinion, you need to vocalize that. I still won't give you my full opinion because I'm not mean, but I will tell you this isn't right. And if you don't fix it, you're going to regret it.
Well, if I ever actually write a book and I ask you to read it before I send it off to a publisher or another editor, I expect you to tear it apart, because
will do.
If it's supposed to be something that I actually want to produce and put out in the world, I need it to be the best I can get it before it gets there.
Right. And that's what I don't understand about the choice not to do that. Is this the best you could get it? And if it is, you should be showing these books to people who can get it better. Mostly because I'm not saying change your story. If you've got a good story, keep that story. But tell it well.
See, this is where I would be afraid to actually write a book, because I don't know that I want anyone in the world knowing what actually goes on inside my brain hole.
Here's the thing, Danny. There are a lot of people who've written books that will never see the light of day because it's therapeutic.
Yeah, fair enough.
And I think that if that's even if you write a chapter and then you throw it away, it is very cathartic. I have 10 books that I started one chapter. I don't even know what they were anymore.
I have so many just 2,000 word things.
Yeah.
And it's just the opening, and I'm like, what the fuck what was this? It's almost more like a dream journal at some point of random fucking ideas.
I'll tell you what though, if something tragic happens and you find those things and you fucking publish them, I will haunt your ass.
I'll Wuthering Heights this shit. Is it Wuthering Heights that was published after?
I'm pretty sure it is.
Passed? Yeah.
Yes, and I hate it. I hate that book. I hate it.
A lot of people don't like it.
Fuck.
A lot of people love it. A lot of people don't.
I get that a lot of people love it. I hate it.
I've only ever seen the movie.
I'm forcing myself to finish it, and I've been reading it for 10 years.
Jesus. Jesus.
I'm I gotta find out why people give a single fuck, because I don't. Anyway,
that's how I feel about the Wheel of Time series. But I'm on the second book, and everybody says the second book is the worst, and I'm like, okay, but I don't want to read it anymore. And I always get to 50 pages left in the book, and I'm just like, no.
Other than there are some books that I will force myself through it. I will say, fuck that. But I've gotten a lot more vigorous with my DNFing. I'm like, there are millions of stories out there. If you want me to read yours, don't waste my fucking time.
Time is precious, man.
Yeah.
I know I cannot read all the books I want to in my life, so why am I going to spend time reading that?
Right.
Oh, yeah. There's been many a book that I'm just like, negatory.
Yeah.
And like, I'm telling you now, so that grocery book that I read, because somebody put it on TikTok, and I was like, I have to know. It was not very long, and so that's the only reason why I read that entire story. But it was, I definitely, if it had been like a full-length novel, I would have been like, okay, curiosity satisfied.
Yeah, I get that.
I mean, I'll be completely honest. I know I'm going to hate it every fucking minute, but I will be reading that Mothman in Your Butt book.
Let me know how it is then. I gotta know.
I'm sure there will be a rage review. Not rave, rage.
I think it's less than 30 pages.
Right.
So,
That's why
I'm
willing to tolerate it.
Right. So you can like knock that shit out.
Sometimes you gotta itch that scratch and find out what the fuck it is.
Yeah. I literally, that entire grocery store one, I just like, not grocery store, groceries one, I just literally sat there the entire time with this like weird face. Like, what the fuck am I reading?
Yeah, sometimes it's
I don't need to know about the yogurt.
Ugh.
No. Okay, getting us back to this book.
Yeah, we should wrap it up.
Yeah.
One of the things I gotta say, and I hope I'm not alone on this one at least, whoever the fuck first coined calling semen seed deserves to be punched right in the cooch or the dick. Whatever business you got going down there. I don't even need to know. Just punched.
Yeah,
I hate it.
That is one of my least favorite things.
Same.
I am guessing it was like what it was not originally called, but that's like an older term for it.
Yeah.
And they were like, oh, this isn't as offensive as semen. No, it is. It's worse. It's gross.
I think it's just made to make it sound like, I don't know, more oldie timey or something. I don't fucking know. But he uses the word cunt and pussy, so you think he could just say cum.
Yeah.
Same. Yeah, I never do enjoy the word seed.
I hate it.
What is there's one part in it where like she has to teach him to not call her pussy something else. I can't remember what it is.
Well, he called it her well.
Yeah, I was like, on that point, Rhea, we agree.
I was like, thank you, I appreciate you. Yes, call it your
man.
cunt, please.
I will say, I wanted to like her more, but she was like the prototype of like, I'm not like all girls. Only like add a little bit of trauma.
Well, yeah, Rhea is not my favorite protagonist, but
she wasn't the worst. But
no, she's not the worst.
We definitely had way worse.
I just think like, I mean, she works for Orpheus. Like she had to be as sarcastic and honestly kind of bitchy in this scenario to stand up to Orpheus.
Yeah,
and to also kind of have like a devil may care attitude to her own life. Because there's so many times where she's just like, well, I guess I'm dying today. Again, I just read it differently than you. But I'm sure part of it is just like when you decide to like something. And of course, this was the first book in this series that I read. But even rereading it, I already had decided I liked it. So when you make that decision, like you see everything from a different perspective.
I would agree with that.
Yeah. I went into it wanting to like it because I knew you liked it so much. And I was just like, okay.
I knew you wouldn't like it.
I'm sorry. I feel like this whole episode's been me bitching. I'm sorry. I am. Please tell me nice things about this book and we'll edit out some of my bitching.
I think we're at the end though, my dear.
Yeah.
Oh, well.
We've said plenty of nice things.
Yes,
We've said plenty of all over the place things. I think the hardest part about editing this one is our tangents are actually so relevant. Our tangents haven't been like, and we're going to talk about the boys or like whatever in our life. Mm-hmm. Our tangents have been like tangents about writing or tangents about world building.
Right.
It's like, those are still useful tangents.
Yeah. Those maybe will turn into TikToks or something.
Sure.
Should we slide into the ending?
Sure.
Yeah.
Slide us in.
Slide us in? Alright.
Slide us in like a dick.
It's like a
Can't finish
Dick
that.
with tentacles.
like a dick hot and steamy from the inside.
Slide it in like you got tentacles pulling it in.
Let me... God damn it, Wiggle. Okay.
I regret nothing on that one.
He couldn't fit his dick in her ass. That's why it didn't happen, okay?
I didn't want his dick in her ass. I just wanted a little tentacle.
Oh, he can't control his tentacles.
Oh. They play with her clit.
Not with his, they just happen to be there. It's not like he's doing it.
I will say this is poor timing, but all I could picture the nautiloids in Baldur's Gate are
Not
like
very helpful.
flying tentacles. Like it's like a jellyfish.
Oh.
And then there's an end. And I kept picturing that, and I was like, I know this is not the author's intent. And I was like, but also, what that thing do?
I saw somebody on TikTok before we slide into the end, who had seduced an illithid and mind flare, whatever you want to call him.
I did see that. I'm
And I
trying
just
to
watched
avoid
it and
spoilers.
I was like, how does this work?
It's gross. I'll tell you that.
The
Your
only
boy-
gross part is like how that'd be another situation where mouths cannot collide because illithids have like octopus beaks
Yeah.
that suck out your brains.
Yeah. Literally kiss of death you.
Yeah.
So,
It's a Dementor. A Dementor.
but your boy Astarion apparently is a big old sloot. Give it up for white-haired elves, man.
Oh.
Yeah. Anyway, slide us into home base.
All right. Damn it, Wiggle.
Bravo.
Thank
I'm
you.
just so tired,
Bravo.
you guys. All right, so should we talk about our ratings for this book?
Did you say that on purpose?
I don't know. What did I say?
You said like ratings, like you emphasize the Raya part of the
No,
word.
I just can't talk today, but sure. Let's go.
Not everything's
it.
a pun list.
I thought it was fun.
Sounds like a girl who just like lay down 5 of them or something.
I like it.
Okay, so
Okay.
our ratings. What are our ratings?
Spies. So what do you think of the spies?
It wasn't the most extreme, but it was pretty good. I'm gonna give it like a 3.5.
I was sitting in
into 4-ish.
I was sitting in 3.5. I don't quite think it tips the edge to 4.
Yeah, not quite. It's not kinky enough for that.
Yeah.
I would also agree with a 3.5.
Your romance rating. Oh boy, this is where it goes south.
I'd give it a 3.5 again.
Wiggles.
I want to hear yours first.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. This is not good podcast content list. Why do you want to hear me first?
To be obstinate.
Yes, that I believe. All right. I didn't like it, but it's good for what it is. I will give it a 2.5.
Okay. I just feel like I'm at a 3. Yeah.
They weren't the best relationship, but they weren't the worst.
They were a broken relationship that brought
Yeah.
together on rocky terms. And I'm here for that.
Yeah.
I could understand a 3.5, but I don't know. I'm feeling a 3, so that's what I'm gonna stick with. Overall,
I gave it a 4. I absolutely loved this book.
I also gave it a 4.
Bum bum bum. I did not. I'll give it a 2.
That's okay.
Each their own.
It just a 2 is far more generous than I've given some books. So this is not the worst. It's not that bad. But no, it had a lot of problems and not very many not enough good things happened to counterbalance the things I didn't like. So
It's
2.
so interesting to me because you didn't like this. You're never going to probably read the next books, right? I am purposefully waiting to read the 4th book, which has been out for a couple months, because I know when I read it, the rest of the world falls away. Like when I read this book, oh baby.
You're going to have a little bit of book depression after you
Yeah.
read it. Yeah.
So I'm in just a completely different category. But
It's
there you go.
interesting because this one felt like a chore to me, but even though I didn't really like Hooked, it went by quickly.
That's because a fuck ton shorter.
Well, that too.
It's like
this book could have been 200 pages shorter.
No, it couldn't. You know, couldn't. Not if you cut out the domestic stuff, because that's the part I loved.
Yeah.
I love the domestic stuff. Okay, so that brings us to our recommendations. Danny, you got a good one. You got one locked and loaded. Talk to me.
I do. It is The Lady and the Orc. It's a monster fantasy romance. It's the Orc Swarm series.
By whom?
By Finley Fenn.
Oh, I've seen a lot of that. That one.
Yes.
On the TikToks.
It's because it's kind of a, stolen away romance and monster and that kind of thing. So
I like it. Wiggles?
So my recommendations will, if you can get past not having a monster in the story. This doesn't really, it's that miss.
She said blasphemy to not having a monster in your story.
Danny, I don't even know what the fuck you're talking about. There was no tail action. Not enough tail action. I give it a 2. Anyway, so if you're open to other types of romances, this is like a modern romance, and the way it starts off is pretty funny. This girl finds herself getting married to a douchebag and bails out of that situation and goes and hides in this like house that's like up and over the fence from where she was getting married. And our man's comes home and is like, "Hello, ma'am, this is my house." And from there it just gets you'll never guess it. It gets dirty.
Oh, shocking.
Shocker. So Kylie Scott is who delivers this story for us, and it's part of her dive bar series. So, yep. I don't know exactly why I feel people who liked A Soul to Keep would like Dirty, but I get the vibe. And that's my rec.
Okay, so the easy recommendation is just to continue in this series. I have read the first 3 books. 4 books are out at the time of recording this. And the thing I really like is, while each book is about a human giving a Duskwalker their soul, every way they do it, so far, at least in the 3 books that I've read, is entirely different. Like, the second book is about the unnamed Duskwalker that we meet in the first one, and he doesn't just repeat what Orpheus does. Like, his situation is entirely different. The third book is about my favorite Duskwalker. Oh, I love him so much. And each Duskwalker's like level of humanity is different, so you get to see all the different like ways they could have grown and existed. And then my second recommendation, which isn't just like read the rest of the series, is read Convergence by Etta Pierce in the Interstellar Union series. This is another series that when I read it, the world just falls away. But the first book is about a human who gets abducted by aliens, except she gets abducted because they need her help to rescue other humans. So it's got a kidnapped vibe, but like they didn't want to kidnap her, but they were like, hey, we actually need your help to rescue these other humans who are actually abducted for bad reasons. So those are my
kind of
recommendations.
like a Gandalf showing up at your hobbit hole and going, "Guess what? I brought some dwarves."
Yes.
I like it.
Okay. Yeah. All right then, folks. So if you like this episode, or even if you didn't, you can still find us out on the socials at Wrong Dust Jackets, or you can find us on our website at wrongdustjackets.com. Please like, share, review, rate, whatever the fuck you can do these episodes out there. Send us your comments and your feedback. We'd love to hear it. Otherwise, that's all we got, folks. Thanks. Bye-bye, y'all.
Bye-bye now.
Bye-bye.
Bye.